You ever notice how quiet it gets right before everything falls apart? Not the kind of quiet you get in libraries or graveyards. No, this one's heavier. It hums, it breathes, it knows. People keep walking around like everything's fine, scrolling, laughing, posing, pretending. But the air's got teeth now, and no one's paying attention. Not really. They think because the sky's still blue and the lights still turn on that the universe must be in a good mood. But see, when things get too comfortable, that's when the real danger creeps in. That's when the warnings come wrapped in whispers instead of sirens. They always say follow your gut, trust your instincts, listen to the little voice inside your head. But what they don't tell you is how easy it is to shut that voice up when everything around you is screaming convenience. See, comfort isn't peace. It's sedation. It's a velvet cage you decorate with likes, followers, and shallow dopamine until you forget the bars are even there. You get used to it. Used to the routine. Used to the pretending. And little by little, your instincts, the wild, primal, screaming things inside you, they stay a whisper. Then they start to fade. Then they're just background noise behind your playlist of distractions and curated happiness. You feel something's off. Of course you do. Everybody does, but you tell yourself it's just stress, just work, just life. You keep scrolling, you keep smiling in pictures and crying in silence and calling it balance. But there's a reason your dreams don't feel restful anymore. There's a reason your silence feels heavier than it used to. That's not random. That's not just another bad day. That's a signal. But you ignore it because comfort tells you not to look too deep. Because if you look too deep, you might see that the whole foundation you're standing on is cracked, hollow, and ready to cave. And oh, how you love that foundation, the habits, the relationships, the identity you stitched together from applause and approval. You love it because it feels safe, familiar. But just because something feels safe doesn't mean it's not killing you. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's sacred. You've turned red flags into decor. Turned warnings into punchlines, turned accountability into offense. All because you've made a deal with comfort that says, I'll stay asleep if you keep pretending everything's fine. But the thing about instinct is, it doesn't die. It waits. It waits under your skin, in your chest, behind your smiles. And when the cracks start to show, when the world around you starts whispering in signs and symbols and strange coincidences, you start to feel it again. The unease, the knowing like the universe is staring at you, arms crossed, saying you were warned. Not in fire, not in thunder, in silence, in a look, in something you can't explain but feel like a knife enough at the back of your neck. People ignore the signs because it's easier to pretend they're not signs. It's easier to call it anxiety or bad timing or just a coincidence. You tell yourself you're overthinking, that you need a break, that you're just tired, but deep down, you know you. And still you stay, still you choose numbness over clarity, habit over honesty, decay over rebirth. Because choosing to wake up means choosing to lose everything that kept you asleep. And that's terrifying, because when the warnings get loud enough to rattle your soul, it's already late. Not too late, but late enough that the fallout has already begun. That unease you've been brushing off, that's not going away. That's not just some emotional static. That's your body trying to scream through the fog of your own denial. It's a spiritual alarm clock going off while you keep hitting snooze. But here's the thing, alarms don't stop ringing just because you're tired of hearing them. They get louder. They get sharper. Until one day they stop, not because everything's okay, but because the thing they were warning you about has already arrived. You start seeing things differently. You look at people and you don't see their faces anymore, you see their intentions. You walk into a room and feel the energy before the words even start. The truth stops being something you read. It becomes something you sense, like heat before a fire, like a shadow that moves when nothing else does. And the worst part, you can't unfeel it, you can't go back. You can't unknow the knowing. That's the cost of ignoring your instincts for too long. They come back with interest, with force, with consequences dressed in your favorite lies. And what happens when the warning becomes a lesson? When the lesson becomes pain? When the pain becomes permanent? What then? You think you can explain it away. You think comfort will save you when the foundation crumbles. No, it will betray you. It always does. It'll leave you there, blinking in the debris, wondering how things got so bad. And that's the joke. It didn't get bad overnight. It got bad the moment you stopped listening. The moment you chose comfort over truth. The moment you heard the warning and laughed because it didn't come with thunder and fire. Just a whisper. Just a feeling. Just enough to be dismissed by someone desperate to stay asleep. You ever try sitting in a room where the clock ticks just a little too loud? Where the lights hum like they're whispering secrets you're not supposed to hear? That's the kind of silence I'm talking about. The kind that presses on your ears like pressure before a storm. The kind that wraps around your bones and tightens like a noose. And what do people do when it gets that quiet? They panic, not on the outside, no, on the inside. They fidget, they scroll, they turn the music up, they fill the space with noise because silence, well, silence is dangerous, isn't it? See, people think silence means nothing's wrong. No alarms, no screams, no sirens. But what if I told you silence is the loudest thing in the room? What if I told you that silence doesn't mean peace, it means something's watching, waiting, something smarter than us, older than us, something that doesn't waste energy shouting when it knows whispers hit harder. People think danger arrives with drums and fire, but real warnings don't come wrapped in chaos. They come wrapped in stillness, in moments that don't make sense but feel too precise to be coincidence. In that sudden chill down your spine for no reason at all. You walk into a room and it's too quiet. You feel it. The atmosphere shifts like the air is holding its breath, like the walls have ears and the shadows just blinked. And you know something's not right. But instead of listening, what do? You laugh it off. You say you're just paranoid. You go back to your day, your phone, your playlists, your fake smile. Because acknowledging the silence would mean acknowledging something bigger, something you can't control. And that terrifies you. People don't fear silence because it's empty. They fear it because it's full of the things they're avoiding. Regret, guilt, shame. All the things they drowned in noise come back to float in the quiet. And in that quiet, that's where truth lives. Not the pretty kind, the sharp kind, the cuts. The kind that doesn't care about your version of the story. Because truth doesn't yell. It doesn't beg to be heard. It just waits. Waits for you to get tired of pretending. Waits for the masks to crack. Waits until you can't run anymore. And when it catches up, it doesn't knock, it slips in. Sits beside you. Leans close. And it doesn't need to speak because you already know what it's saying. You've known for a while, but you've been ignoring it, dressing it up in distractions, sedating yourself with comfort, all so you wouldn't have to deal with the fact that the silence was trying to save you. The warning wasn't the chaos, it was the calm before it. The moment before impact, when everything feels a little too still. That's when you should have paid attention. You think the universe is going to send you signs in big neon letters. You think when things are about to fall apart, there's going to be a countdown clock on your wall. No, the signs were always there. In the people who suddenly shifted, in the gut feeling you swallowed, in the way the room changed when certain names were spoken. But you ignored it because silence is easy to ignore when you've trained yourself to stay distracted. And when the consequences show up, you act surprised. Like you didn't see it coming. But deep down you did. And let's not pretend like silence doesn't change people. It does. Because once you really sit with it, once you let it sink in, you start to see, not just others, yourself. You see how long you've been lying. How often you smiled while your soul screamed. How many chances you had to leave, to change, to wake up. And how many times you hit snooze because it was easier to pretend you were okay. But silence doesn't lie. Silence reveals. And sometimes what it reveals is that the scariest part of your story wasn't the villains, it was how willing you were to ignore the warnings. So maybe next time the room gets too quiet, don't turn the volume up. Don't fill the space. Don't scroll past the moment. Sit in it. Let it crawl under your skin. Let it ask the questions you've been too afraid to answer. Because maybe the silence isn't the threat. Maybe it's the last bit of mercy before the storm. Maybe it's the universe giving you one more chance before everything you ignored gets loud enough to make sure you never ignore it again. You ever watch someone walk straight into a mess with their wart? Like they knew it was coming, but still strutted into the fire like it was a red carpet. That's not bravery. That's delusion dressed in confidence. That's what happens when people think just because the consequences haven't arrived yet, they never will. You see them all the time grinning like gamblers, stacking bad choices like poker chips, thinking the house won't come to collect. But the house always collects. It just waits for the stakes to get high enough to hurt. People walk around thinking they've outsmarted fate. Like if they keep moving fast enough, talking loud enough, pretending hard enough, the truth won't catch up. They treat consequences like rumors, maybe real, maybe not, depends on who's talking. But the thing about consequences is they don't need validation. They're not waiting for your permission to exist. They're patient, silent, surgical. You'll think you got away with it. You'll think the silence means you're safe. And then one day, boom, the cost shows up, not in flames, in facts, in outcomes. In the echo of every choice you made, like a domino finally tipping. You don't get punished for the crime the second you commit it. No, that'd be too merciful. You get punished when it hurts the most. When you've built something on a rotten foundation, and just as you start to enjoy the view from the top, that's when the cracks show. That's when everything starts to shift. That's when the smile fades and the panic sets in, and you start saying things like, how did this happen? As if you weren't the one stacking cards on wet sand. The whole time people like to think karma's a hammer. But no, it's a mirror. It doesn't hit you, it shows you. And what you see, that's the punishment. Seeing yourself clearly for the first time. Seeing how many times you ignored the signs, twisted the truth, justified the wrongs, all while telling yourself you were doing what you had to do. You weren't surviving. You were gambling. And the house doesn't forget. The universe doesn't lose count. Every skipped step, every sold soul, every smile you faked to keep the lie alive, it adds up. You thought you were being clever, but you were just buying time. And time, well, time's a cruel collector. It lets you believe you're in control. It lets you enjoy the illusion. But every second you delay the inevitable just makes it sharper when it arrives. You can outrun people, sure, you can outtalk them, outspin them, outplay them. But you can't outrun the math of your own actions. It all adds up eventually. And when the equation balances, it won't care about your excuses. It won't care how sorry you are, how hard you cried, how much you meant well. Consequences don't need closure. They just need truth. And isn't it funny how people act surprised when it all comes crashing down? Like the fire didn't start with the first spark they ignored. Like the fall didn't begin when they stepped off solid ground, one lie at a time. They scream about betrayal, bad luck, unfairness. But deep down, they know. They knew. Every time they felt that gut twist and still said yes. Every time they looked the other way. Every time they played innocent while pulling the strings. They knew. They just didn't think the bill would ever come due, but it always does. The universe is patient, not forgetful. It'll let you have your fun. It'll let you dance and dazzle and deceive. And then when it's time, it won't scream. It won't warn, it'll just balance the scale. That's the real horror, isn't it? That nothing exploded. That no one shouted. That it all just stopped. The calls, the smiles, the peace. It's not punishment, it's arithmetic. And in the silence that follows, you finally hear it. Not the sound of the crash, but the whisper that came long before, the one you ignored. The one that said, don't do this, but you did. And now you sit in the debris of your own decisions, trying to make sense of a ruin that was built brick by your own hands. And that's when you understand. The worst part isn't the fall. It's realizing you were warned. Realizing it was never fate or luck or sabotage, it was you. Every choice, every silence, every mask. And when that mirror shows you your reflection in the wreckage, that's when the real noise begins, and it's coming from inside. They always talk about monsters like they're hiding in closets or creeping under beds. Fangs, claws, shadows with red eyes. But the real monsters, the ones that eat you alive with a smile, they sit at your table. They shake your hand. They wear perfume and tell jokes. And remember your birthday. And maybe that's why it's so hard to run, because by the time you realize what they are, they've already rewritten your story and painted themselves as the hero. You see, monsters don't need to grow anymore. They manipulate. They flatter. They make you question your gut, twist your words, turn your instincts into paranoia. They dress up their destruction with charm, and you drink it like wine, calling it love. And even when you feel the poison, you say it's just a rough patch. Even when your light dims, you say maybe you're just tired. They don't destroy you all at once. No, that would be too obvious. They take little pieces. A laugh here, a boundary there, a dream you buried for them. And by the time you look in the mirror, you don't recognize the reflection anymore. But here's the magic trick. They never do the damage alone. They get you to help. Slowly, they make you complicit in your own unraveling. Make you apologize for bleeding. Make you explain why it hurts. And then this is the part one love. They act confused when you finally scream. They look at you like you're the crazy one. Because to them, your suffering is only real when it's convenient. Your pain only matters when they can use it to make themselves look like the victim. And you let them. Not because you're weak. Not because you're stupid. Because you were loyal. Because you were kind. Because you believed in people who sold you hope like it was candy but filled it with glass. And still, even after you bled, you kept reaching for more. That's the curse of being someone who feels deeply. You think everyone else does too. You think love means the same thing to them as it does to you. But to a monster, love is currency, control, a leash, a mirror they use to see how powerful they are, watching your soul crack while they smile and say they didn't touch you. And know how they hate it when you wake up. When you stop dancing for their approval. When you stop explaining yourself. When you stop crying in front of them. Because the moment you get quiet, the moment you look them in the eye and see the truth without flinching, that's when they panic. That's when the illusion shatters. Because now they can't hide behind your kindness. They can't hide behind your guilt. You've seen them. And once you've seen the monster, it can't pretend to be human anymore, but it doesn't end there. No. Because even when you walk away, they don't let go. They play victim. They gather spectators. They tell their version, one where you were unstable, ungrateful, unpredictable. And you sit there with the truth in your chest like a ticking bomb, watching everyone believe the performance. Because monsters don't work alone. They recruit. They charm the crowd. They turn the room against you until the only voice you trust is the one inside your own head, and even that, they've tried to rewrite. So what do? You stop arguing. You stop trying to convince anyone, because you realize the people who believed the monster never really saw you in the first place. They saw what they wanted. And now that the mask is off, they don't want it the mess underneath. But that's not your mess to clean. That's not your lie to carry. You were just the mirror. And monsters hate mirrors unless they're cracked. You stop begging to be understood. You stop waiting for justice in a world that rewards pretty lies over ugly truths. You start rebuilding, quietly, furiously. You take your pain and you mold it into armor. You take your story and you turn it into a blade, not for revenge, not for applause, for clarity. So that next time when a monster smiles with kind eyes, you don't hand them your heart, you hand them distance. And you let them wonder how you survived. You let them hear your name in rooms they thought they owned and feel the chill run up their spine. Because nothing haunts a monster more than the prey that escaped, the one they didn't break, the one who saw everything and still chose to rise without them. Funny thing about silence, it's loud. Louder than screams. Louder than glass shattering or bones breaking. Silence isn't empty. Oh no, it's full. Full of the words that never got said, the apologies that never came. Lies that hung in the air like smoke and just stayed there. People underestimate silence. They think it means peace, stillness, but real silence, that's the aftermath. That's when the storm is over and you're standing in the ruins. Not sure if you're alive or just not dead yet. See, people love noise. Noise distracts. It covers the cracks, buries the doubts, muffles the truths that want to crawl out from under the floorboards. They laugh too loud, talk too fast, post every emotion online like validation is oxygen. But silence doesn't lie. It shows you what's real. And when someone goes quiet on you, not the fake kind, not the pouty kind, but really quiet, you better start worrying. Because that kind of silence is surgical. It's not passive. It's a decision. It's someone turning off the switch and saying, I'm done feeding the circus they pushed and poked and twisted you until the scream built in your throat like fire. And you gave them what they wanted, didn't you? The reactions, the tears, the begging, the explanations. They fed on your chaos like parasites. Because that's what people do when they think you're weaker. They provoke you, then call you crazy for responding. They set fire to your peace and then blame you for the smoke. And you tried to keep the peace, didn't you? Oh, you tried. You lowered your voice. You softened your rage. You tried to explain your hurt in a language they don't even pretend to understand, but they didn't want peace. They wanted power. So when you finally stopped arguing, really stopped, that's when it wanted to get interesting. That silence. It wasn't surrender. It was evolution. It was you realizing you don't have to explain truth to people committed to misunderstanding it. That you don't have to water yourself down for anyone who chokes on your depth. That silence isn't weakness, it's withdrawal from a game you never wanted to play in the first place, and oh how it shakes them. Because they were counting on your noise. Your rage gave them purpose, your pain gave them control. But now there's just silence. No reaction, no explanation, just you breathing, healing, rebuilding in places they can't reach anymore. And they start to spiral because monsters only thrive in chaos. Remove the chaos, remove them. Now they're yelling into a void, hoping to provoke the old you, the one who used to bleed on cue, who used to dance for closure that never came. But you've changed the channel. You've stopped performing, and that silence, it's not just a lack of words, it's power. It's the sound of you pulling the plug, walking off their stage, letting them perform their victim script alone. Because you finally see it for what it is, a pattern, a cycle, a carefully crafted trap disguised as connection. And you've had enough, so you go quiet, and they call it cold, they call it poet-lartless. But it's neither. It's necessary. It's survival. It's rebirth. They'll call your silence revenge. But revenge requires focus. This isn't that. This is release. This is walking away not because you're bitter, but because you're bored. Because watching someone play villain and victim in the same breath gets old. Because you've realized some people don't want healing. They want attention. And you're done being their mirror, their confessional, their emotional punching bag wrapped in empathy. So now they sit there wondering what went wrong. They poke the silence, trying to find the crack. But there isn't one. Because you've sealed the doors, boarded the windows, moved the hell on. And they'll keep spinning, writing stories about who you are, what you meant, why you left. But it won't matter, because you're